Thanks. What are they gonna do? Something that has no color. Of course, yeah, in case the flies through the window, right? Of course.
We're good? Okay.
I hear you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Virginia. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Virginia Harger, Chairperson of the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission. Today is Wednesday, January 20th, 2021, and the special meeting of the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission is hereby called to order. The protocol for this afternoon's meeting was previously reviewed by Corporation Counsel, who indicated to me that it is compliant with the executive orders issued by the governor and fair for those attending in person or watching from a remote location. And I just want to ask the commissioners participating remotely, can you hear the audio, because these are new microphones?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yes.
I can hear you clearly.
Yes, I can hear.
Thank you. Okay, I'll continue. It's just a reminder that all commissioners and staff attending today's meeting in person and others in the auditorium will need to wear masks that cover the nose and mouth throughout the meeting. Even when speaking, your cooperation is appreciated. Would everyone present in the auditorium please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I invite all who are participating remotely to do the same. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, that cover the nose and mouth throughout the meeting, even when speaking.
What was that?
Just some backplay. Someone's got their,
Yeah.
phones on.
I'll continue with the roll call. When your name is called, please verbally indicate you're present, and I'll begin with those who are participating remotely. Commissioner Parkins.
Present.
Commissioner Tiki.
Present.
Commissioner Usel.
Present.
Commissioner Radomski. Okay. Mr. Panico, our consultant.
Present.
Okay, for the record, alternate Commissioner Laskos indicated to me he would not be available to participate in today's meeting. Commissioner Radomski said he did plan to participate remotely, but he may not be able to, he may be late in calling in. So until he indicates that he is on the phone, Commissioner Usel, will you sit in, please, for Commissioner Radomski?
Yes,
Mark
that sounds
Radomski.
good.
Join the meeting.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Radomski, you're present? Commissioner Radomski, are you participating remotely?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right, because I just finished the roll call of remote commissioners, and you hadn't responded, but we heard you logging in. So, Commissioner Usel, you'll be back as an alternate for the meeting. Commissioner Radomski, do you plan to participate throughout the whole meeting?
As far as I know, yes.
It's just that please give me a heads up if you have to leave so that I can see Commissioner Usel. Thank you.
I will do that.
Thank you. I'll continue the roll call with those in the auditorium. Commissioner Kelly?
Present.
Commissioner Amato? Myself, Commissioner Harger. Mr. Rossetti, our administrator?
Present.
Mr. O'Neill, our assistant administrator and CEO?
Present.
Mr. Nappy, our downtown projects coordinator? And our recording secretary, Sarah Vanassos?
Here.
And Stephanie Charbonneau, our stenographer, are you participating remotely?
Yes, I'm here.
Good, thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Ask her how the audio.
Okay, how's the audio working out for you?
So far, so good. I can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just give us a heads up if there's an issue.
I will do.
And a
Thank
couple
you.
of points before continuing with this afternoon's agenda. This is the Commission's 25th meeting being done via a live streaming process. Commissioners participating in person and remotely will be able to make comments throughout the meeting so that we are not all talking across each other and our recording secretary is clear as to who is speaking. Commissioners are asked to please say Madam Chair and then your name. As soon as the Chair recognizes you, you are free to speak. Please be aware that you may hear an echo. Commissioners participating remotely are asked to be aware and remember that microphones on computers will pick up ambient sounds, which will be heard in the auditorium throughout the PA system, including movement of papers, phones ringing, and conversations if others are in the room. So, if at all possible, and you have the ability to do so, please mute the audio on the computer. The first agenda item is a public hearing. The applicant will begin by making a presentation of its proposal. During and after the presentation, the Commission will have the opportunity to ask questions of the applicant, which can be answered at the time or after the presentation. After the presentation has been completed, and after the Commission has finished taking questions, members of the public will be invited to address the Commission about the proposal. Members of the public addressing the Commission during today's public hearing need to be mindful of the following. Those from the public need to clearly write their name and address on the sign-up sheet that is by the podium before coming to the podium to address the Commission. And that's to assist the recording secretary and stenographer when doing the minutes and transcript of the public hearing. All comments and questions are to be directed to the Chair and to the Chair only, not to the applicant and/or his associates. No dialogue is permitted between the public and the applicant or any of the applicant's associates. All comments from the public should address specific criteria of the zoning regulations and the merits of the application. All comments from the public should be new information and not a repeat of comments that might have previously been presented. Unless a member of the public has new comments to or questions of the Chair, members of the public who wish to address the Commission are asked to briefly indicate whether or not they are in agreement with the previous speaker and not repeat the same testimony. Members of the public are expected to practice appropriate etiquette by being quiet, observant, and respectful. Disruptive attendees may be asked to leave. After all members of the public who are in attendance today finish addressing the Commission, the applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to public comments or questions. After the applicant and/or his associates have concluded the presentations, have answered all questions, and have addressed all concerns from the Commission and/or the public, and if no further information is needed by the Commission, the Chair will ask for a motion to close the hearing. If the Commission feels further information is needed, the Chair will ask for a motion to keep the public hearing open. At a future meeting of the Commission, after the public hearing has closed, the Commission will discuss the specific application, and the Chair will poll the Commission for a consensus on how to proceed. And a reminder to the Commission that once a public hearing has opened and until it is closed, Commissioners are not permitted to make any public comment, discuss any part of the applicant's presentation, or receive additional information from anyone. So we'll begin with the continuation of the public hearing for application 20-21, Willinger, and Boosie, for Manuel Motino at 6 Todd Road, Assessors Map 77, Lot 25, for a planned development district on 1.22 acres for a 10,170 square foot retail development. This application was accepted for review on October 28, 2020, and several documents were posted to the city's website for this application. A full set of plans of 9 pages, a drainage report of 72 pages, and a market study of 103 pages. The public hearing for this application opened on November 18, 2020, and was continued by the Commission without the applicant making a presentation, as an applicant's representative was not available at that meeting. Mr. Rossetti, were any comments received from the public that we need to acknowledge for the record?
No.
No, there are not. Okay, who is representing the applicant? Come on up to the podium, sir. Please identify yourself and proceed with your presentation.
Madam Chair and members.
Put the microphone in front of your mouth. Yeah.
There you go.
Madam Chair.
Much better.
Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the Commission and staff, good afternoon. My name is Charles Willinger, and I do represent the applicant, the owner of the 6 Todd Road premises that we'll be speaking about this evening. This afternoon. Since this is my first appearance before this Commission, with your permission, I'd like to digress for just 1 minute, Madam Chair, and explain that, as by way of introduction to me and our firm here. And, I've gotta tell you, I was amazed to see the type of development, in Shelton, particularly around the Bridgeport Avenue, place that we live, off of on Parrot Drive. You see, I owned, a small house in the White Hills, district of Shelton, back in 1973 when I got out of law school and started my practice. We outgrew that home and we unfortunately moved from Shelton around 1977. I really hadn't been back there in 35 years. But as an outsider who's come in now, I do want you to know that what I saw here in that intervening 35 years was tremendous growth, good development, smart development, not only on Bridgeport Avenue, but even downtown Shelton. Obviously the corporate campus parks, the Renaissance, other condominiums, and so forth. And in fact, I was so impressed that I got my partners to agree to, after 60 years, our law firm has been in Bridgeport, that to leave Bridgeport and come up to Shelton. We opened up our office. I was practicing law in Bridgeport 47 years. We opened up our office on 1000 Bridgeport Avenue. I think this phenomenal growth that I've seen as an outsider coming in, is really due in large measure to every one of you members of this commission and staff, and of course your predecessors. And I just want everybody to know that I'm very proud to be back as a resident and a business owner of Shelton. And thank you for that.
Attorney Willinger,
Yes.
take the top of the mic and bend it so that it's in front of your,
Okay.
there you go. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This is an application for change of zone. The current zone is Office Park District. We want to change it to a PDD so that we can construct a 10,170 square foot retail building on the property in question, which has been read into the record is a little bit over an acre of land. And if you're inclined to change the zone, of course, we would also ask you for initial development concept approval pursuant to your PDD regulations. The property in question is located in the Bridgeport Avenue Quarter Special Development Area, and more significantly, it's located just across the street from the Big Y Shopping Center. When we moved into the Renaissance, they were just about finished constructing that shopping center, and to my knowledge, I believe it, I shopped there a lot. I think it's 100% occupied. There may be one vacancy, but I don't even remember one vacancy. Thoroughly successful retail center, and as I said, it's located just across the street. Now, this property, 6 Todd Road, was previously developed. It was utilized for industrial purposes mostly, which made it a non-conforming property, non-conforming use. About a dozen years ago or so, the building burnt down, and the property has been vacant since. When we first were hired by the applicant, we took a little ride around, and I noticed that the property had materials deposited on it, and it was, frankly, I thought it was an eyesore. My client explained to me that from time to time, people do deposit or dump things on the site, and he has a hard time keeping up with it, but hopefully today it's a little bit better. But really it is, frankly it is, it has been an eyesore. We filed, well not us, we were hired at the time, but the applicant filed a prior application in the spring of 2018, very similar. He wanted to change his zone to PDD. On October 9th of 2018, this commission was deadlocked by a 3-3 vote. Commissioners Harger, Kelly, and Mato, if I'm mispronouncing, I apologize, voted in favor of the change of zone. Commissioners Pagoda, Adamski, and Dickel voted to deny, and therefore, since there was a deadlock, the change was not granted. Now, Commissioners Pagoda and Adamski, we've thoroughly read the record, the transcript of the hearing. They tonight, principally, because they said they didn't see whether or not, or they couldn't, and there wasn't enough proof whether or not there was a need for retail at the site. And Commissioner Dickel, was concerned about the fact that there was only one means of egress, and ingress and egress from the site. And as a matter of fact, the city engineer at that time had written a letter, and he also questioned there was only one means of getting in and out of the site. So for this application, and our engineer will walk you through the plans in a moment or two, you'll notice that there are two means of getting in and out of that site. And we have also filed, and hopefully you have received in your package, the feasibility studies prepared by a pretty well-renowned firm, Cushman and Wakefield. They did two feasibility studies, one for office and one for retail at the site, and we'll be addressing those in a few minutes. In any event, we refiled, or filed this application after the 2018 denial. And in October, we had your informal hearing with Alex and Josh, and also Commissioner Kelly was there. They were very helpful. They offered suggestions. And we discussed at some detail whether or not we wanted to, or should, rezone this into the restricted business district zone. After that meeting, evidently Josh or Alex spoke to Mr. Panico, and I think it was his, or maybe it was a collective opinion, but word got back to us that there are some uses in that restricted business district which would not be desirable. And it was suggested that we stay with the PDD zone, which of course will limit the use that we make of the property. And so that was the background on us filing for the PDD and sticking with that application. Now, at this point, I'm going to have Keith Buda from Pereira Engineering address the board and walk you through the plan so you can see what we propose. Good afternoon.
If the button is up, it's on.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Commission and staff. My name is Keith Buda. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Pereira Engineering, located here in Shelton. What I'd like to do at this time is just walk you through the proposed site development plans, which are shown up on the screen before you.
Mr. Buda, before you do so, just spell your last name for the benefit of our two secretaries.
B-U-D-A. I'm going to start with the improvement location survey. That's sheet S1, which is shown up on the screen at present. The property is located at the southeast intersection of Platt Road. The total parcel area is 1.1 acres. The site is currently foundation and paved parking areas and driveways. The total impervious area on the existing site is approximately 86%. The site has two existing curb cuts, one on Platt Road and one on Todd, and is serviced by sanitary sewers, water, and gas. There are presently no functioning storm sewers or stormwater management systems on the site, and the stormwater runoff is currently uncontrolled and untreated for pollutant removal. Approximately half of the runoff from the site currently flows towards Platt Road and Todd Road, where it enters the municipal stormwater system via two catch basins located at the southeast intersection of Platt Road and Todd Road. This system is then piped to the northwest under Todd Road then discharges further downstream adjacent to Bridgeport Avenue. The other half of the runoff flows towards Todd Road, where it then travels south along the gutter of the road before ultimately entering the municipal stormwater system.
So, Mr. Buda, what you're saying is the runoff is not contained in it with piping?
That is correct. There is no functioning stormwater management system currently on the site.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, shifting to the site plan, sheet C1. A 10,170 square foot retail building is proposed for the site. The building is located roughly in the center of the site with paved parking and driveways around the building. For parking, the total spaces required is 51 spaces, which equates to 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet. The total spaces provided is 51 spaces, which includes 3 ADA reserved spaces. The existing curb cuts on both Flat Road and Todd Road will be reused for both access into and out of the site. An abundance of landscaping will be provided around the perimeter of the parking area and within the internal islands and is depicted on sheet SL1. Unfortunately, that sheet is not loaded up on the monitor here, but I do have it on a board here for you, which is the landscape plan.
Mm-hmm.
That plan was prepared by Primrose Companies. The total landscape area on the site is approximately 10,600 square feet.
So does that mean it's what's around the perimeter as well, what might be close to the building or on the front, where the front sidewalk is? Or is it just the
The
perimeter?
front sidewalk is primarily hardscape, concrete. There is a couple internal islands. I'll just point those out on the board.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That contains landscaping. The rest of the area around the building is primarily sidewalk. And then, as I mentioned, the perimeter of the parking area is heavily landscaped.
So basically, it would be the rendition of what you have down below, right?
Yes, that's correct. Okay, shifting to the grading and utilities plan, this is sheet C2. The proposed impervious area on the site is approximately 78%. This results in an 8% reduction of impervious area compared to the existing conditions. The reduction in impervious surfaces results in a net reduction in stormwater flows for the developed conditions. The proposed stormwater management system consists of new catch basins and piping, which will discharge directly to the existing municipal stormwater system located in Todd Road. An existing connection at the catch basin located at the northeast end of Todd Road will be used to connect the new on-site stormwater management system. All stormwater runoff will be pre-treated through the use of best management practices consisting of catch basins with deep sumps and hooded outlets to trap sediment and debris, and will thereby improve the quality of the stormwater discharge. In the end, the proposed development will provide a reduction in the post-development peak flows. The proposed building will also be served by public sanitary sewers, water, and gas. Retaining walls are proposed along the east, south, and west perimeters of the parking area and will vary in height ranging from 0 feet to 7 feet, with an average height of 4 to 5 feet. Okay, moving on to the soil erosion and sediment control plan. This is sheet C3.
Mr. Buda, could you point out somewhere those retaining walls that you're saying, where did they start at 0 and go up to 7? Yeah, let me have you-
So as I mentioned previously, the retaining walls, run along the east.
So for the benefit of those who are participating remotely, that's the area that's parallel to Todd Road, but behind the building.
Everyone can see, there's a red mouse there, everyone can see that who's.
Thank you, that's, I'll use it. So as I mentioned, the retaining walls are along the east side. This one starts here and runs south along the edge of the parking, around the dumpster enclosure, along the southern side of the property, and ends at this point here. The other retaining wall runs along the western side of the parcel, adjacent to Todd Road, and starts here and runs along the perimeter of the parking and ends roughly at this point here. The height in this area height along the Todd Road, the retaining wall along Todd Road, is roughly about 4 feet in height at this point here. And then from there, it goes down to 0, and at the other end, the northern end, it goes down to 0.
Mm-hmm.
The retaining wall, the highest point of the retaining wall is approximately in this area back here in the corner, over by the enclosure, and that is approximately almost 7 feet in height at that point there. And then it varies along the eastern edge here, where it varies from 7 feet to 4 feet to 5 feet, and then back down to 0.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Excuse me. Mr. Muda, you have dumpsters at the back of the building?
Is the button up on your,
I think so.
gotta go up, no, hit it. Here you go.
Hello? Okay. You have dumpsters on the side of the building, in the back? What's the material they're made, the enclosure for that? Is there an enclosure on there?
There is, there's an enclosure, I'll, pull that detail up for you.
Chairman Harder, can I make a comment, Commissioner Wodomski?
Go ahead, Commissioner Wodomski.
I have 2 questions at this point. The first question is the stormwater discharge coming off the property into the existing system. Is there going to be enough capacity downstream in the pipes going further down towards the final discharge? I believe it's going to be in that brook down the road. Is the current existing system you plan to hook in, is that going to have enough capacity to handle the additional water coming in from the property? And second question is, you mentioned the city sewers. Do we have an estimated volume that you're going to be putting into the city sewer system? And and I'd also like to have the estimate sent over to the sewer commission to have them take a look at it and see what kind of capacity we have left in our sewer and our sewage treatment plant.
Okay. All right, I am sure the engineer will answer those, and he has not quite finished answering Commissioner Kelly's question about the dumpster enclosure. So, Mr. Buda, do you have that information ready?
Yes, so the dumpster enclosure, detail is shown on, C5, which I have up on the screen there, in the upper left-hand corner. It's fully enclosed. We have, double gate door on the front, a heavy-duty, painted gate in the front and wood siding on the sides and the rear.
Okay, thank you.
So that's not those gates are not open slatting. They're, like a snow fence?
They're not open, if that's what
Yeah,
you're
right.
asking. It's solid.
It's a solid piece.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, I'll give you the option as to whether or not you need to make any more comments or to go ahead and answer Commissioner Adamski's questions.
With your permission, I'd like to just finish up my presentation.
Sure.
And then I'll come back and answer the questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so picking up where I left off, soil erosion and sediment control plan, this is EC3. A detailed soil erosion and sediment control plan has been prepared in accordance with the 2002 Connecticut guidelines for soil erosion and sediment control. Soil erosion and sediment control plan includes a detailed sequence of construction to control runoff during construction and to maintain a stable site. The details related to the specific soil erosion and sediment controls are included on sheet C4 of the package. The remaining drawings for the site development plans consist of the site-specific construction details related to the proposed site. Those can be found on sheets C5, C6, and C7. In addition, drainage calculations are also provided which summarize the proposed site improvements and include the drainage design calculations and related supporting information, along with stormwater operations and maintenance manual. To answer the first question that was asked with regards to, I believe it was the drainage flows.
And the capacity of the piping or something, I think?
Correct. So in the end, we have a net reduction in impervious surfaces, which directly correlates to a net reduction in stormwater flow. So we're thereby not adding any additional flow to the system. We're actually reducing the amount of flow entering the system. With regard to sewer flows, we have not prepared the calculation for that. For the retail building, but we'll be doing so with regard to connection to the sewer.
Okay. Commissioner Adamski, is the information presented by Mr. Buda regarding the drainage sufficient for yourself?
Yes. Yeah, it was fine. I'd still like to get a report from the Sewer Commission on the current capacity that we have left in the sewage treatment plant. I'd like to have the engineer at some point come up with a rough estimate of what the average use would be for that type of size facility for sewage going into the system.
Yeah, I think as Mr. Buda explained, they'll be working on that. Okay. Mr. Buda, anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Attorney Rollinger?
Keith, thank you. That was a good job. We also have our architect, Marcos Rainmeyer from Those Sheds here, but I don't think the architectural features of this development are that complex. So unless you want him to go through his plans, which are not, by the way, on the projector, he has it here, he will for you, or he can answer any questions from the architect. The building is, we propose 4 stores. As Keith mentioned, we have over 10,000 square feet of landscaping, and Marcos is also a landscape architect as well. And so the architecture is, pretty essentially what you could see in that plan.
Mm-hmm. No, it would be great if you could go through them. That's our
Go through? Fine.
usual protocol.
All right, fine.
Mm-hmm. Hold on, Commissioner Perkins.
I wish we get some elevation.
Just for 1 second, it's very hard to hear the applicant speaking. There seems to be a lot of paper rustling or something on a mic, and so it's very hard to hear the applicant.
The paper rustling might have been my fault. I apologize for that, and I'm glad you pointed that out.
Not looking to blame, just pointing out that we can't really hear.
Okay. All right, so, Commissioner Amato?
Oh, apparently we've just been sent, the elevations and, because I don't really understand about those retaining walls or can't visualize them very well.
Mhm.
And also, I would like details on the
I think I can get them up
plant,
there.
the plant list.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Rossetti's going to do something to get them up on the screen. Okay? No, I kept it on.
Commissioner Amato, while getting set up, could you repeat the question that you had so we could make sure we could address it?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I want to know the details on the planting.
On the plan?
I have an interest in,
Okay, we will do that.
native plants.
Oh.
Guess we got, it's here on the elevation. Oh, so I wanted to see what how these retaining walls work and how they look. Apparently we don't have additional information.
Yeah, over.
Mr. Pianico, do you have the, email with the, elevations that?
Yes, I just got it, just before the meeting started.
Okay.
It appears to be essentially the same elevations that we had at the original submission.
Okay.
Sheet A2, by the way, is the,
Commissioner, Chairman Harger, Mark Domsky.
Go ahead, Commissioner Adamski.
Ginny, the materials that were just supplied to us a little while ago today with the new pictures, was that was that put on the website for people to see?
No, Mr. Rossetti is not in the room. I cannot ask him how long ago those appeared.
Okay, we really should strive to make sure that everything is up there for the public to see, because that's part of the governor's orders, that everything has to be up there ready to see for the public. And if the applicant didn't,
I agree with you, Commissioner Adamski.
Yeah, well, we need to find out when the applicant submitted them, because it's not right that we're going to continue a meeting if they weren't submitted on time.
I'm going to ask Mr. Rossetti that particular question when he returns. What were you saying, John?
They were submitted on time. Correct.
Chairwoman, this is Commissioner Ticky. I am looking at documents that are on the city website, so if I should be looking elsewhere, I don't have any other documentation sent to me.
Commissioner, check your email for something that was sent around, around 4:15 this afternoon. There should be a number of attachments, and I believe that's what, those are the documents that, they're going to be presenting here that were not on the website.
I do not have that, that email? Who sent it?
It was sent with when they sent the information to sign on to the meeting at 4:16.
Okay, I don't have an email. I only have is the email sent at 3:35 p.m., which is the call-in information.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was sent after.
Sam?
It was sent after.
It is not in my spam folder.
Josh, are you resending that?
I forwarded it to him.
I received it.
You forwarded it to him at the,
Wasn't included in the original.
oh, okay, so you're just sending it him to him now? Oh,
So
okay.
I'm just clarifying, was I not included in the original?
Yeah, Mr. O'Neill is, indicating that was not, but you were not, but he forwarded it to you. So.
Okay, so I'll take a look at the
for,
email that was just sent to me now,
Yep.
45 minutes
gotta
into
be
a
it.
meeting. But obviously, we absolutely need to put these documents up to the public before we take them up. I was under the impression that what's listed on our website is what we're reviewing tonight. So we really need to be better at that.
It's Commissioner Wodanski. Ginny, it's incumbent upon our staff to make sure all that stuff is publicized. If the material was submitted by the applicant on time, we need to make sure it's publicized because it's part of the meeting. And how would we expect people to comment if it's not up there in time for them to make comments tonight? It's just not right.
Because they can do it the same way that it was done for the past 30 years. They can come into the office.
No, this was stuff that was just sent at 4:17.
I know, but the plans were in the office for the past months.
Alex. All right, let's, go on. All right, so, you have, information that can be put up on the screen now? What are we gonna look at?
Landscape is what, SL1?
Yeah.
I'll see.
We don't have the landscaping plan then, so today's the
No, it's here.
It's SL1, right?
We have it, yeah,
Yeah, I have it.
Hang
On the email.
in the email.
Hang on. Users. Oh, yeah.
That was right there.
Yeah. No.
Picture it.
Madam Chair, if you would prefer, I could go through, I wanted to go through those two feasibility studies. I could, do that while Alex is getting set up.
That's a good idea,
Okay.
Attorney Willinger. So, go ahead with, the first part of that.
And we'll get back to the architectural and the landscape in a few minutes.
Sure.
As you, hopefully have in your package, we did submit from Cushman and Wakefield two feasibility studies. I'd like to first just highlight, the feasibility study for the office building first and then the retail.
And that's the one that is, the cover page that's dated April 1st?
Yes, it's all dated April 1st. One says office feasibility and one says retail.
Okay, go ahead.
So the office feasibility study, that was prepared, frankly, it was prepared even before the pandemic, but it noted at that time that there was a 7-year oversupply of office space in Fairfield County. Today it's worse. It noted that as of 2019, eastern Fairfield County, which has the main focus of Shelton, had over 5.5 million square feet of vacant office space. That's pages 29 and 34 of that report. On page 34, it also noted that the office rents were dropping. That's worse today. And what it said is that this particular 9 Todd Road property couldn't compete with the class, first class or class A office space, such as the Cinto developments, where you have all these amenities, gyms for the tenants, cafeterias for the tenants. In my building on 1000, we have a beautiful cafeteria. But this Todd Road in this office zone couldn't compete with that, so their rents would even be lower. And all that is, as I said, without any mention of the pandemic, which has made the office market substantially worse, and hopefully it'll only be for a few years, but who knows. The most compelling evidence, though, in that report for the infeasibility or unfeasibility of office is really on pages 74 through 81, when Cushman & Wakefield goes through the economics. And what they say is that the land and construction costs for an office is $4.5 million. The rents, the net operating rent, once fully leased, would be $110,000 a year, and that, of course, is before debt service. And on pages 80 and 81, they appraise the property fully completed and rented to have a value of $1.3 million. So when you have property that cost you $4.5 million to build, and it has a value of $1.3, you can see clearly that that's not going to ever happen. No one's ever going to build that office building. Now, conversely, the second feasibility is...
Excuse me, Commissioner Carter, Commissioner Wodomski.
Go ahead, Commissioner Wodomski.
Hi. The email, some of the commissioners didn't receive the email so late in the day, including myself. I received it at 4:17 p.m. It's not up on the city website. Therefore, the public that hasn't had no chance to review any of this. Quite honestly, I'm not comfortable conducting a meeting without the following the
Mr.
guidelines.
Wodomski, the report that Attorney Willinger is going over is up on the website. It's on the Zoning Commission page. It's part of the materials for application 20-21.
The data that is included in the email today at 4:17 p.m. is not on the city website.
That's not what he's. That's not where he's quoting from.
I understand that. I understand that. My point is that I'm not comfortable conducting a meeting and not being in compliance with the rules that we're supposed to be following. Everything's supposed to be posted 24 hours before a meeting. It's obviously not. I don't know why. I think we need to look into why it wasn't. But I don't think we should be continuing a meeting without following the guidelines. I mean, we're supposed to be following the rules here, and we're not. We're clearly not at this point. An email sent
Commissioner
at
Wodomski,
4:17
seeing
p.m.
that particular material that you may be referring to, or the architecturals, that is something that, because we have always, since the start of our live streaming process, have continued public hearings, we can pick that up at the continuation of a public hearing. But right now, the information that Attorney Willinger is in the middle of reviewing is the market studies, and those are on the website, and they have been for a couple of months now. Okay?
We
So I think
should,
that would be
if the
I
information is
understand
not
where
on the
you're coming
website.
from, Mr. Radomski, but you have stated your case, and I understand it, so let's move on, please. Attorney Willinger, go ahead.
Okay, so the second feasibility study, is relating to the retail building. And Cushman and Wakefield notes, that this property is in a very good location, for retail, particularly because, obviously the Big Y, is such a success. So and our marketing people tell us that we hopefully get some overflow because there's a nice traffic, count on now for the retail. But it's not just the Big Y. Up and down Bridgeport Avenue, there are a number of retail establishments. But again, the ultimate test for feasibility is whether or not the real estate transaction will pencil. That's the developer's language, will the deal pencil? And on pages 73 through 80, Cushman and Wakefield notes that the cost of the land and the construction for retail is $3.4 million. Remember, the office was 4.5, but the retail is 3.4. But the rents, the net rents, and the net operating income, which means the gross rents less the expenses, not the debt service, $317,000 a year, which equates to a value of $4.225 million. So that deal does make sense. It's say $4.2 million value for $3.4 million cost. And I think that really is the best evidence that says the deal works as retail, not as office. And in fact, on pages 48 and 49 of that report, the retail report, Cushman goes into detail as concluding that the highest and best use of the property is for retail. And I guess the best evidence may be the fact that this is, in this office zone, this property's been vacant for over 10 years, actually. And I think that speaks for itself. So, from our standpoint, what works is retail, what doesn't work is office, its current zone. Now, if we don't have, I understand, Madam Chair, that we're going to do the architectural at the next hearing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then, Marcos, we're not going to do that tonight. All right, so then the next report that was filed was our traffic report. And I can't see who's on Zoom, but our traffic expert, I hope he was there, he's there. We had a report filed by Kermit Huey of KWH Enterprises. And what I would like to do to save some time is, I don't think we need Kermit, assuming he's there. Hopefully he's there to answer questions, but I could walk you through those reports very quickly. The report that you have in your file is 2019, which updated the report that he filed for the first application that was denied, which was 2018. And he needed that to do that because he had to analyze the two driveways that are coming into the site now instead of the one. So the report notes that for retail, the peak hour during the week for retail is 4:30 to 5:30 in the afternoon. And the busiest time is on Saturday, and that peak, the Saturday peak is at 11 a.m. to noon. Those are the two peaks. But during that peak hour, those peak hours for the weekdays and for the weekend Saturday, this retail use will only generate 39 weekday peak hour trips. That's in and out, 39. And on Saturdays, it's the busiest day, for that hour, that peak hour Saturday, 46 trips in and out of the center. So you can see from those numbers that the amount of traffic really is minimal, and certainly it's insignificant in the sense that, and this is in his report as well, the level of service of the intersection of Platte Road and Bridgeport Avenue won't change. Doesn't affect that at all, speed. And and of course, that intersection is signalized. And by the way, in his report on page 11, it says that the traffic going at Platte Road intersection, Platte Road, Bridgeport Avenue intersection, will only increase by 1.2 seconds on the weekdays and less than 1 second on a Saturday. That's page 11 of this report. And he also says that the intersection at Platte Road and Todd Road will continue to operate at its level of services A and B during the peak times. Now, in addition to that report, you'll see a letter that was submitted dated September 29. And that letter, Kermit did not take new traffic counts. And the reason he didn't do it is because we're in a pandemic and there's less traffic on the road, not more today. So he used a higher traffic count of 2019, and he increased that by 0.5% a year, the growth rate. So in his report, he factors in the increase in traffic and the fact that right now traffic isn't as high. The study on page 18 concluded two things of significance to this commission. One is that the intersections and the approaches to the site will remain at an acceptable level of service, and two, that the traffic impact is negligible. Now, one other traffic note, when we were first introduced to the site, we took a ride up Platte Road, and I noticed that there was a Sikorsky facility up the road. And there was a lot of cars in that facility. So we went into that facility, and we met at the, not a gate, but there was a guardhouse. I assume he was a guard, or, I don't know exactly his official title. He had a badge and everything. And we asked him what the use of that facility was. And we were told that the office people at that Sikorsky facility work only on the weekdays, and they leave at 3 o'clock. And that works well for this, because the peak hour for retail is 4:30 to 5:30 on the weekends, and that's an hour, on the weekdays rather, that's an hour and a half after Sikorsky empties. And on Saturdays, Sikorsky isn't there at all, and so there's absolutely no traffic conflict from that Sikorsky facility. Now, if you have other questions on the traffic, if Kermit is here on Zoom somewhere, I think he could probably answer that if you have any traffic questions. But really, traffic is not a significant issue at all.
Okay, let me just ask, any commissioners participating remotely have any questions for the traffic study? Any commissioners here in the auditorium? No? Okay.
Then I'd just like to finish up, subject to questions, on what we call the legal standards of this application. I'm not going to go on it long at all, because I'm sure you're familiar with that. But our Connecticut Supreme Court has devised really a 4-part test for a change of zone. 4 things that a planning and zoning commission may want to consider in granting or denying a change of zone. The first thing is whether the new proposed zone is consistent with your comprehensive plan. Now, that's legal gobbledygook. What it really means in plain English is, will the new zone, the new proposed zone, and the new proposed use be in harmony with the character of the neighborhood? And actually, that character of the neighborhood issue is also addressed in your PDD regulations at 34.2.1, 34.2.2, and 34.3.1. And that echoes that same point. What it says is that the very purpose of your PDD zone is to permit development consistent with the neighborhood, and in this case, consistent with the Route 8 corridor special development area. We believe that we are totally consistent with the nature of the use of our neighboring properties in that Route 8 corridor. And hopefully you agree. And by the way, I should say for the record that we also meet all the standards in 34.3, the minimal standards for a PDD zone. including minimal lot size, coverage, FAR, height of building, and availability of water and sewer. So we squarely are on all points in that regard. Our second test, in addition to harmony with the neighborhood and the character of the neighborhood, is that you should consider your master plan, which is purely advisory. But we looked at that master plan, that's the 2017 update to your 2006 Plan of Conservation and Development. And on pages 12 and 13, there's the goal or the objective of growing your grand list. But it's growing with appropriate commercial development and development that recognizes and is dependent on market conditions. And that just underscores, I think, our point. This property is certainly, in today's market, more geared to retail and not at all office, which is, I think, another reason to grant this application. The third test, and I think it's the one that's most scrutinized by the courts, is whether the change of zone will adversely impact the health, safety, and well-being of the neighborhood. And I honestly can't think, in this case, of one adverse impact. Traffic is usually one of those impacts. There's very little traffic generated. This is only a 10,000 square foot building. There's no noise, no increase in runoff, no pollutants. So there's really no adverse impacts at all to our neighbors. And then the last test, the last part of that four-part test is what they call the Morningside test. And it's whether, there's one question you have to ask yourself, and that is whether time and responsible planning indicate a need to change the zone. And I would respectfully suggest that the time is right to change the zone. It's responsible in the sense that you want planning that works. An office zone on this parcel just simply does not work, and retail will. So I would respectfully suggest that we pass all those tests for a change of zone, and you're certainly justified in granting the change of zone, and I hope you do. And just two minor points for the record, and I know you know this well. Section 34.9 of your regulations requires you to make certain findings prior to adopting, if you're inclined to adopt a PDD. And just looking at those findings, I'm not going to go through them, consistency with the zoning regulations, adequate traffic, safeguards, utilities, adequate, and so on and so forth. Well, again, you're justified in, I think, making each and every one of those findings. And then the last point is there are findings, if you do approve the PDD change, in reference to the initial development concept approval, which is this plan, you're also required to make some findings. That's 34.8 of your regulations. And again, the findings are very similar to the PDD findings, and I think you're justified in making all of those. And so, at this point, subject to us coming back to address at least the architectural and landscaping, which we will, unless you have any specific questions from any of us, we would rest our case, and I thank you very much for your patience.
Okay, let me just ask commissioners that are participating remotely, does anyone have any questions on the material that's been presented so far?
Commissioner Harder, Commissioner Parkins?
Go ahead, Commissioner Parkins.
Just a couple of things to note. I really don't have any issue with this. This property has been an eyesore for many, many, many years. I think as we've seen with COVID, people can work very well from home. And in fact, most people, I think, prefer working from home. So I think for us to hold out for an office park development or any sort of an office development is wishful thinking at best. Right now, it's generating less than $3,000 a year in taxes. So it's not only creating an eyesore, it's a very low tax generator. Some of my concerns are that I assume no statement of uses has been provided yet. And I believe if I heard correctly, they're just looking for PDD approval and initial development concept plans. something I would seriously want to consider, and I know this commission has talked about this for years as well, is to require sidewalks, at least on the Platte Road side. So along their property only, of course, we can't ask them to put in sidewalks anywhere else, but there is a lot of workers that walk along that road down toward Bridgeport Avenue. There's a bus stop right there at that corner. So I think a sidewalk, and then perhaps we can get the city to put in crosswalks from like the car walk over to the entrance of the of this retail plaza, and would ask that the retail plaza put in a crosswalk from that Platte Road to their sidewalk, so that, you know, similar to the have at Panera Bread or Staples, where as you're walking across, there's a crosswalk that people have to stop for. So I think we need to really concentrate on the foot traffic that's in that area as well, because we have Jay Brennan, we have a lot of businesses up on that, in the hack of Jay Brennan. We have people that drop off their cars for service at the car wash that may be, depending on what's in this plaza, if it's coffee or a deli or what may be going over there. So we have to make sure that it's safe for pedestrians as well, because I do expect that it would generate a bit of foot traffic.
Thank you, Commissioner Parkins. Those are very good observations. Is there anybody else participating remotely from the commission? Go ahead, Commissioner Radomski.
Following up with Commissioner Parkins, I agree with the sidewalk, but I'd also like to see that sidewalk extended down along Todd Road to the end of their property, because there is a business down there where people would leave their cars, professional tires down there. They may walk up to use that plaza at some point. There's also I believe the Spooner House is just down the street, and there's some other things down that street. So I'd like to at least start the process of getting sidewalks along that street. Plus, Todd Road seems to be used as a bypass at times to avoid some of the traffic on Bridgeport Avenue. And I think coming up on Todd Road with the sidewalk, at least beginning at their property, up to Platte Road, I think that'd be a wise decision. At least we can provide some safety at that point for somebody walking on that street. I also have another question. There was the retail feasibility, I may not have heard it, but was the retail feasibility study mentioned?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Commissioner Radomski was asking if the retail feasibility study was mentioned.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any, when was that feasibility study done, and what data years were they using?
It was done in April of this year, 2020. Data was 2019.
Okay, so it was basically pre-COVID, the data you used, correct?
Pre-COVID.
Oh, yes, pre-COVID, yes, sir.
Okay, so my concern is this, and Commissioner Parkins kind of touched on it with the fact that a lot of people are working from home now, and I'm going to go a step further with on the retail side of it. My concern is retail brick and mortar was a dying breed before COVID. And we can see that with some of the big retail places going out of business, and even some of the mom and pops. And now that we have this COVID here, it's been proven that online shopping is going to be successful and probably the way of the future. So my concern is the data you're using is pre-COVID, and times have drastically changed. And I'm concerned that your data is flawed and it is accurate actually, because of the new times that we're living in. Yes, at some point we are going to get back to normal, but again, I don't think people are going to return to some of their trades. I, for one, was never a big person for ordering online. I fell in love with it. It's so much easier than going and standing in a store and trying to find something. You just sit at the couch and you can do it. I think that's the way of the future, and I think we need to be careful of the retail that we start bringing in. Because I'd like to remind the commission that we have Fountain Square just down the street that is being built with a truckload of retail there. Closer to this site, we have Shelter Ridge, which granted at this point it's kind of in limbo, but that was proposed for tens of thousands of square feet of retail. Downtown is, with all the apartments we're putting in, we're still adding, thousands of square feet of retail down there. Driving around town, I do see a lot of retail places vacant. Perhaps the place across the street where the big Y Plaza is, maybe there's only one or two in there. I get what he's saying. But my concern is looking further up the street, Bridgeport Ave, and going into the downtown area. I'm just concerned that, retail may not be the future, and we may want to hold out for something different. I'm not sure, but that's just some thoughts to put out there.
Commissioner Harder.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kelly, you had some comments?
Yeah, I understand the idea of, online buying and whatnot, but this type of retail, it's not a big box retail. So I would not, or more or less go with that scenario that online buying and not because they're not a big box store. So basically, they're, odds and ends that people would come in for. So I don't see that being a problem.
And if I could address that point too?
Sure.
Okay. So as far as the feasibility study, there's no, it takes a while to get data. So, there's no data available on the, COVID, pandemic, in reference to, our proposed retail use. We all know that in reference to the existing zone, though, COVID has decimated the office market. So the question is, what makes good planning sense? You have a zone which is not feasible. So why not do a retail zone in this particular location? Because right across from that big Y, you're going to get overflow. That's what Cushman & Wakefield's saying. That's what our marketing people are saying. So it's an excellent place for retail. But you've got to give the property owner, it makes good planning sense, to give him the vehicle to make a success out of this property, to basically utilize this property. And I agree with Commissioner Kelly. There's going to be 4 more neighborhood-type stores, and not, these big warehouse-type things where you go and get your more internet type of goods. This is only 10,000 square feet, and it really lends itself to retail, and it doesn't at all to marketing. And then lastly, in reference to the sidewalks, what we decided to do, and it's on the plan, is because the sidewalks will hook up to nowhere. But what we have done is we're going to be grading and topsoiling and putting lawn where a sidewalk could potentially go, and we'll give the town what we propose to do. When it makes sense to actually spend the money, we'll give the town an easement or a fee, because we'll work that out with staff, so that in this area, when it can connect with something, you'll have the right to do that. That's what we propose with the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Commissioner Harder.
Thank you very much.
Chairwoman.
Go ahead, Commissioner Adamski.
Okay, as far as the sidewalk thing, the last couple of years I've been on the commission, we've been requiring the property owner to put in the sidewalks, or at the very least have something in our final approval that they have to pay for the sidewalks at such time that it's deemed necessary that we need them. We did that for Fountain Square. We did that for Mr. Cinto's property further up on Bridgeport Ave, just past Dutchess. I think it's something that we should have been doing right along, like Commissioner Parkinson said. And I think this is a good jumping point, and the city shouldn't be responsible for the upgrades of things like that. That's his property, and it's great that he would say he'd give a easement, but at the end of the day, it's his property. It's our opportunity, as Dominic Thomas said at one point. It's our time to say, okay, this is what we want for the approval, and these are the things we were going to put in here, and this is what we should be doing. Because we all know that the city's not going to put that sidewalk in. It's just not going to happen. And as far as the retail, apparently we're going to have differing opinions on this because, again, there's been tons of retail approved already. And I guess my question to Mr. Willinger would be, what types of retail are you proposing? Because we have a ton of pizza places, we have a ton of nail places, we have a couple stores that would be catering to the phones. I mean, what else is there out there that you're proposing or thinking you're going to get that we don't have multiples of already? I mean, we can only have so many pizza places, et cetera.
Before Attorney Willinger responds to that, I'm just going to give you my opinion in that I don't believe we should be looking at a proposal for a retail building and perhaps base our decision on what kind of occupants they will have. That is the landlord's responsibility to source vendors and tenants that will be of use to the community. And if he cannot, then he will not be getting rent from those particular tenants. So I think it's somewhat dangerous to go and tread on that kind of approach as to, well, what kind of tenants are you going to have? Because we already have a lot of other ones in other categories exist in town.
Well, I think my point, Ginny, was we are a zoning commission, but we are also a planning zoning. That's what we are, the planning and zoning. We are here to plan for the future of the city of Shelton. If we don't think a plan is feasible, because we may have a 10,000 square foot building, it's not going to bring in something that's going to be a huge tax base for us. And that's something we need to look at. This is not going to bring in the mega taxes that something else might in the future. What that might be, who knows? Times are changing, and we all know that. But just throw something in there just because, to me, it seems kind of ridiculous to do that. It's like when you go and hire somebody and you have a vacancy and you throw a body in there just because it's a warm body and it doesn't work out. It doesn't make sense for long-term planning, which we should be doing, which is part of our job to do, is long-term planning. Not today, not tomorrow, but 10 years down the road from where we want to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Modomsky. Is there anyone else that has any questions, comments, or concerns for the applicant before I open it up to the public?
Ginny, I might make a couple of comments.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Panico.
Perhaps the applicant's engineer could take a look at the property line, I guess it would be the easterly property line. There is a proposed retaining wall virtually on the property line or very close to it. And on the other side of the property line is a paved area that perhaps most likely has some sort of vehicular activity. It may be desirable to consider introducing a barrier, a motor vehicle barrier, rather than just the type of fence that they're talking about. Also, with respect to the retaining walls, regarding the discussion of a potential sidewalk on Todd Road, I would point out that in order to create the level area to put the sidewalk over there, it is going to exacerbate the height of that proposed proposed retaining wall. It'll become a much more dominant retaining wall. I just throw those out so perhaps the applicant can think about it and comment at the next meeting.
Yes, thank you very much. Those are two good observations. Thank you. Okay, if there are no other comments, questions, or concerns from the commission, is there anyone from the public who would like to make any comments on this particular proposal?
Can I just?
Sure.
Madam Chairman.
Wait a minute, Mr. Panico. Commissioner Romano had spoken up.
I had one more point that I wanted to make before I forgot. I know we didn't talk about the architecturals, but having looked at the architecturals, I noticed there was no information on it regarding signage, what the proposed signage might be. I think a signage plan ought to be made part of this submission.
Excellent point.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Mr. Panico, for bringing that up. I'm sure the applicant has so noted that. Okay, so Commissioner Romano, you...
Yeah, since Mr. Panico brought up the retaining walls again, just for the next meeting, if you think you could have some elevation, some renderings, so I could get a better idea of how they work. I can't visualize them very well.
Okay. All right, so I'll again ask, are there any members of the public who would like to make any comments on this particular proposal? And third and last call, any members of the public who would like to make any comments on this particular proposal? Okay, so if there are no other, no one from the public is, hold on a second. There's no members of the public here that have indicated they'd like to make any comments. Commissioner Ticky?
Are there any plans for there to be a drive-through for any of these retail establishments?
No.
Mr. Attorney Willinger, you want to answer that?
Yeah, there's no, plans for a drive-through and no tenant, that are marketing talk to the car.
Okay, very good.
I
Anything
couldn't
else,
hear
Commissioner
the-
Ticky?
Yeah, I was unable to hear
His
him, but I'm
answer-
wondering. Go ahead.
Did you say that you could not hear his answer?
That's correct.
Attorney Willinger indicated that no, there are no drive-throughs, being planned for this, and no one that they have spoken to as to being a tenant has indicated that they would require or like a drive-through. Is that correct, Attorney
Okay.
Willinger?
That's true.
But they are
Okay.
open to a food establishment?
If the tenant needed a drive-through, we consider it, absolutely. I don't have an answer today if it would work, but we'd have to see that.
Mm-hmm. That, you would have to come back to the commission for that, something like that. Yeah.
The question was whether you would be interested in a food outlet, you know.
A restaurant.
That's correct.
Yes, we would consider a restaurant as a,
All right, so, is there any other comments, questions, or concerns from the commissioners? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to continue the public hearing?
So moved.
There's a motion to continue public hearing from Commissioner Kelly. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Amato. And on a roll call, Commissioner Kelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Wodomski?
Aye.
Commissioner Amato?
Aye.
Commissioner Ticky?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion is continued. Public hearing has passed 6-0. Thank you very much. The staff will get in touch with you most likely next month. Yeah, we have one meeting left for this month, and that agenda's already been developed. Okay. Okay, next on the agenda is other business, and the first item is comments from the chairs and the subcommittee chairs. And I'd just like to remind the commission that the December 8th, 2020 minutes will be on next Wednesday's meeting agenda for action. So I would ask that all commissioners, please make sure you read the minutes before the meeting.
What day did we say that?
Next week's meeting.
Yeah, but what's the
Oh, the December 8th.
That's right, okay.
Okay. Commissioner Mato, do you have any comments from the zoning subcommittee?
No, I don't.
Okay. Commissioner Kelly, do you have any comments from the downtown subcommittee?
Not at this time.
Okay. And then, how about comments from staff? Mr. Rossetti and Mr. O'Neill? Okay, so we're going to go on to the zoning recap and report. Is that something, Mr. O'Neill, you're presenting?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
is it working?
We'll find out. Yeah, I know.
This is probably their traffic engineer.
Yeah, the traffic engineer. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is just a brief overview, I'm gonna give a brief overview of the, report that we put together, that goes over the year 2020. I know it was a challenging year for pretty much everybody. This just goes over, the day-to-day office, activities, as well as commission applications that came through during 2020, as well as the zoning enforcement and complaint, report. So the first page, after the cover sheet, goes over the commission.
Kenny, can you have him talk into the mic?
So the first page goes over the commission applications that were submitted throughout the year.
There were actually 26 submitted, which is the exact same amount that were submitted last year, oddly enough. Just like last year, the majority of them involved either the establishment or modifications of a planned development district. I'm sure you guys are familiar with all the different projects. A number of them are still ongoing, just like the Todd Road that we just heard. So that's pretty simple, self-explanatory. Just basically goes over the projects, what they were classified as, and their current status as of the time of writing. The second section is the certificate of zoning compliance. This includes permits that both the commission approves, including signs and in-law apartments, as well as the staff approved, which are the vast majority of them. So for reference, in 2019, there were 401 total permits or certificates of zoning compliance issued. You can tell by both the bar graph and the table that there was a steep drop-off in the months of March, April, and May, which is, to be expected since we were quarantined, or, the office was not open.
Join the meeting.
Throughout the rest of the months, everything was pretty steady. It's usually busy over the summer. You can see we had our busiest month, in June, 53. There were a little bit frequent home office applications this year, and we think that's because, we always say that people are working from home and they probably prefer it that way. The home offices definitely had an uptick in 2020. The rest of it's pretty standard, detached residential structures, sheds, pools, decks, run-of-the-mill type things. 25 new homes, which is a number that I'm looking at, it seems a little low, but that 25 number also includes the duplexes. They're not counted individually that are in Hawks Ridge, which we had, at least 8 of them were duplexes that, were built and issued COs. So that number is actually a little bit higher than the 25 number that's listed there. Let's see, signs, 43 signs came through.
That's all?
Yeah, that's it.
We spent 80% of our.
Exactly.
The rest of it, goes to the different application types and, the frequency, then also by month, and it's also reflected on the next page in the bar graph that's colored. Some of the copies that I think I gave out here it's in grayscale, so it's a little harder to see, but this will be published online for everyone to view within the coming days. And the final part is the zoning enforcement and complaints component. So there were 60 complaints received this year. Those are ones that we received in 2020, not necessarily ones that we've been working on. We're still working on some from 2019, whether they're in litigation or sort of a holding pattern. It's a case-by-case basis most of the time. So 60 in 2020, 65 were in 2019, so pretty similar in the volume of complaints and enforcement actions. I broke it down as best I could into types.
Are any of these repeat offenders?
Off the top of my head, I think there were a couple, mostly to do with junkyards and things like that on registered vehicles. We had, residential zones, obviously. Also they could apply to commercial zones, but most of the time they're in, an R1 zone. And, we send out a voluntary compliance letter. We work hand in hand with the blight department for those junkyard cases. Let's see. So I broke it down by category. So we also, like I said, work hand in hand with other departments, whether it's blight or the tree warden or the fence viewer or engineering or wetlands. If there's a drainage question on somebody's property. I broke down just a short summary of the different kinds and the categories I broke it into. And that's about it. I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has, either today or in the future.
What about those soil erosion controls and drainage, filling and grading? When you find that someone has filled in an area, they've had to remove the item, the fill, or what's? Potentially,
yeah, that hasn't happened this year. Well, we've had one last year, for example, on Mohegan Road where, a gentleman brought in probably 500 yards of fill. Was trying to make his yard flat and, you know, created almost a cliff to his neighbor's yard. So we had him remove, you know, nearly, probably 2/3 of the material he brought in and grade it down so it, you know, it sloped, nicely into the neighbor's property. Didn't adversely affect them in terms of drainage and water runoff and things like that. But for the most part, it's minor filling and grading, or, you know, someone calls and says their neighbor's digging a hole, they wanna know what's going on. So it really is, like I said, case-by-case basis for a lot of these.
Okay. Any commissioners participating remotely have any questions for Mr. O'Neill? Anyone here in the auditorium on the commission have any questions? Nope. Okay. Very good. Keep up the good work. All right, and does anybody else have any questions for staff? No. Okay. Well, seeing that there is no other business on today's agenda, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Motion to adjourn from Commissioner Kelly. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Amato. On a roll call, Commissioner Amato?
Aye.
Commissioner Dickey?
Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Radomski?
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly? Commissioner Parkins?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Motion's passed 6-0, and the meeting is adjourned as of 6:04 p.m. Thank you, everyone.